Serious. Redditors who accidentally killed someone, how has it impacted your life? Warning. This video may contain upsetting stories. When I was 16 I was going home from work late at night and needed to swing by the gas station. I was getting ready to make a left turn into the station and waited for a few motorcycles to pass, and I looked down the road to clear the turn and saw a single light from a motorcycle about a mile away, so I went ahead and made the turn. About halfway through the turn I saw the light getting brighter and noticed the guy was maybe 3 feet away from my car. That's when time began to slow down as I stomped on the gas to try to get out of the way. It was unfortunately too late as his body hit the side of my car, completely shoving to the side. I got out and he just laid crushed in the street. The gas station was very busy, so a crowd immediately formed around the man and cops and ambulance came. He died a few hours later in the hospital. After the accident I just sat on the side of the road thinking, well, I'm going to prison, I just killed a dude. Very much in shock, and a bystander came up to me and said, do you see what you did? Go see what you did. I wasn't really responsive at this time. After detectives came and talked to people I found out the guy was going well over 150 miles per hour on a bike trying to catch up to his friends. And when I pulled out he didn't slow down but apparently ditched his bike and only his body hit my car. Turns out if he stayed on his bike he would have missed me completely. I was bothered for some time, but have come to accept that this kind of crazy stuff happens. Just have to carry on. Throw away because I don't want this getting linked to my main account. I was actually going to tell this story on another thread a couple weeks ago but deleted it. I used to be an airline pilot for a relatively large regional airline. Because I didn't make much money doing it, I worked as a flight instructor on my days off from the airline. One day a student of mine and I were up practicing some maneuvers over an area with a lot of trees. As we were finishing up and about to go back to the airport, our engine started acting weird. It was a bit rough and we lost RPM. No big deal, I thought. I figured we were just running the mixture too lean, so I enriched it and had no improvement. I started heading towards a field we passed a couple miles back. It wasn't big, but it was our best shot. If things got worse as the airport was something like 15 miles away, the engine only got worse. I was having trouble maintaining altitude and I radioed in a mayday call with our position. Eventually, the engine died completely. I tried a restart but nothing worked. As we were lining up our final approach, we made sure the airplane was secured and all that. Turns out the field was a lot smaller than I thought. We touched down and it was extremely rough. I had a lot of pressure on the brakes, trying to not lock them. The trees were coming up very fast and I decided we weren't going to stop, so I tried to get the airplane back on its front wheels and slam on the brakes to make it flip, so we could at least stop. I thought about it too late and we smashed straight into a big tree. I can't remember very clearly getting out, but I do remember seeing my student in the front seat slouched over with his head to the side. I tried to yell for him to get out and realized his eyes were open. The local police arrived within minutes of us touching down and later they said they saw us coming in. They got my student out and took me to a hospital to be looked at and x-rayed because I had bad pain in my neck and back. They pronounced my student dead at the scene. His neck snapped on impact. I didn't have any legal action taken against me or anything. The NTSB and FAA said that I did the right thing in the situation. I just wish I cold gotten the plane flipped over. I feel guilty. His wife blamed me and tried suing me. I have extreme anxiety and don't fly anymore. I wish I could bring myself to do it because I truly loved it. I work construction now because I have always loved building stuff and fixing up the house. I'm 36 years old now and have it on my bucket list to fly one last time. Many years ago I helped make tiger tracking collars that the government of India bought. They use the collars to find tiger poachers. There are now fewer tiger poachers and more tigers. No sleep is lost. A very drunk guy tripped off the sidewalk into 5 o'clock traffic right in front of me. Not enough time to stop. He was limp enough that when I hit him with my SUV, he wrapped up on my back right tire. I stopped the SUV, got out, and found him wrapped up like a burrito. So many broken bones, blood everywhere, but his head was resting at 10 o'clock on the tire. Was in the process of reaching to touch him, just a few inches away, and I saw him breathe. I started crying, went up to the sidewalk and went into shock. After firefighters / cops / ambulance came by, took the report, and I was taken back to my apartment from a friend. Spent that weekend at their place, and they drove the SUV to my apt beforehand. But it took over a week for me to be able to drive the SUV again. 2 weeks later, was told the vehicle was a crime scene, so cops took it for another day, but deemed it not needed. Found out the parents were trying to sue me, but due to the 5 witnesses at the location, which I didn't even know, they vouched for me. The toxicology reading, he was at 0.25 alcohol level at death, and he had Hep C. One of the firefighters caught that when they were removing him due to all the blood in the parents did know about, most likely due to drugs. So they dropped the case. I will never drive on the sidewalk side of the road unless it's a one-way. And I still hug towards the interior and tend to swerve if people are on the sidewalk. This occurred 12 years ago. About 5 years ago I hit an old lady in the street while I was on my motorcycle. I believe she was dead on the scene, but wasn't pronounced dead until the hospital. I wasn't drinking or speeding, she just ran across the street chasing the bus. I'll always remember the instant she turned to look at me before I hit her. It definitely shook me up, and I'm rather sensitive to crossing the street, especially jaywalking or outside of a crosswalk. Every once in a while I get flashbacks and kind of shudder. Just remembering everything, replaying it over and over. I always am cautious now in areas with lots of pedestrians, watching carefully to make sure no one is crossing. I think it didn't help that at the spot I hit her, I have had cars or people try to cross before, cutting me off. I remember the day it happened I was driving slower than I might, usually because I knew it was a trouble spot. There's still that what if I hadn't driven it, or what if I saw her before she started crossing. I'll always have that with me, knowing she died, and her kids and grandkids never saw her again. Knowing she was just trying to get to work to provide for her family, only to get killed by someone else on his way to work. It sucks. I've never spoken to her family, though her son was at the scene that day, and I can't imagine what they went through. But I hope they know it wasn't intentional or negligent on my part. And I hope they are doing okay. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like to meet them. I don't know what I would say or do. I was at the river a couple years back with my mom, my girlfriend, and my dog, and had swam across to a sandbar. The current was pretty strong that day and a couple of Hispanic guys came and tried to swim across. About halfway across they both panicked. I, being a strong swimmer, swam out to try and help them. One of them was able to recover his composure and finish swimming to the bank. The other one couldn't. He climbed on my back, and I made the mistake of trying to swim him back against the current for a few seconds. After a couple seconds I turned around and swam him and me closer to a sandbank with the current, the one my girlfriend was at. But at this point I was exhausted from swimming myself, and a panicked guy. I had to push him off of me. I barely got myself close enough to the sandbar for my girlfriend to pull me in. He was 13 years old and drowned that day. I try not to think about it, and I try not to beat myself up, but sometimes I can't help but blame myself. I went the wrong way, and if I hadn't, I'd have been able to save him. This happened 2 months ago. I was driving to church and have no memory how, but I wrecked badly. My brother and I should have died, but aside from my few days in the hospital and my brother breaking a finger, we were relatively okay. A cop came into the and bluntly told me the other lady had passed. It crushed me, and the nurses were so kind to me, and they really helped me. It was discovered that she may have had a heart attack before, but definitely after. I'm not depressed about it. I couldn't have prevented it, but I really hate that it happened and wish it didn't.